A young man, born into the harsh realities of poverty and violence in Cuba, finds himself embroiled in a world of crime and corruption. Driven by a desperate quest for revenge, he navigates a perilous path of deceit and danger, ultimately confronting the heart of darkness within himself and those around him. In the end, he must find a way to escape the shadows of his past and build a new life. The thought of my men being caught and implicating me sent shivers down my spine. It was a risk I couldn't afford. But then Carlos, the treacherous servant, dropped a bombshell. El Jeef had a daughter, and today was her birthday. A sinister plan began to form in my mind. What if I used the daughter as bait to lure El Jeef into a trap? It was a risky gamble, but the potential payoff was immense. I could eliminate the head of the snake and take his place, all while avenging my father. I contacted my most ruthless enforcers, the ones who lived for the thrill of the hunt. I outlined my plan, emphasizing the potential rewards, wealth, power, and the respect of the criminal underworld. Their eyes lit up with anticipation. They were in. I called my team together, my voice low and intense. "The target has changed," I said, my eyes scanning their faces. "We're going after El Jeef's daughter." A murmur of surprise rippled through the group. I knew they were skeptical, but I was determined. I contacted Carlos, my informant, and demanded more details about the girl. He told me about her Saturday night routine, a ritual as predictable as the rising sun. She frequented a popular nightclub, surrounded by a coterie of friends. The real danger, he warned, was the heavily armed escort that never left her side. The idea of kidnapping El Jeef's daughter sent a shiver of excitement down my spine, a perverse thrill at the thought of inflicting the same pain on him that he had inflicted on my family. The image of my father, beaten and broken, fueled my rage. With each passing day, the plan solidified in my mind. I would strike on Saturday night, when the city was lulled into a false sense of security. My targets were not just the daughter but also her bodyguards, a formidable challenge, but one I was determined to overcome. As the day of the operation drew closer, my anxiety grew. The weight of the decision I had made pressed down on me. There was no turning back now. I had to see this through, not just for myself but for my father, for my mother, for all the victims of El Jeef's cruelty. Saturday night arrived, a night cloaked in anticipation and trepidation. I'd given my team their orders, their faces a mask of determination. They were ready as I was. Hours turned into an eternity as I waited for the call. Finally it came, a terse message confirming that the target was alone. My heart pounded in my chest as I relayed the information to my team. It was time. I was tracking the steps of the two thieves who sent them, and when the promised hour came, the thieves moved to get from that prey. After the dismissal of her friends, she was heading towards her father's house, and in one of the streets with lights, an empty 2 cars headed towards the president's daughter, and stood in front of her. She was not aware of what awaited her. The thieves went out heading towards her, the president's daughter. Was afraid and wanted to escape by turning back quickly, and turning to the opposite side and fleeing, but one of the thieves managed to grab the car, and cling to it, and smash the glass, and entered then, and in his hand, a cloth sprayed with anesthetic for sleeping. The thieves actually succeeded in catching it, sent 3 other people to remove cars, and flying glass from the street, to be a complete process. But then, a chilling perception struck me. What if El Jeef knew it was me who kidnapped his daughter? Would that be a death sentence for me and my family? The idea was terrifying, but I pushed it aside. I've come so far that I can't go back now. I needed to stay focused, to anticipate every possible emergency. This was a game of chess, and I had to be several steps ahead of my opponent. The cabin was a desolate outpost, a place where the world seemed to end. As I stepped inside, the sight that greeted me was a stark contrast to the brutality I had anticipated. Sophia lay on the bed, her face pale and serene, oblivious to her surroundings. A wave of guilt washed over me. This young woman had done nothing to deserve this. Yet I was trapped in a web of my own making. I couldn't let her go, not yet. My plan was to use her as leverage against Eljif, to force him to his knees. The next morning, the city was in uproar. Sophia's disappearance had made headlines. Eljif, a man known for his ruthlessness, was consumed by a primal rage. He summoned his gang, a gathering of hardened criminals, and offered $1 million to anyone who could bring his daughter back alive. The room was a cauldron of fear and ambition, a perfect stage for my next act. A cool design rushed through me. Eljif was paying for what he did to my family. His terrorist reign with him will end. A public campaign, a desperate charade to worry about the missing girl began. The media was in a frenzy, and the audience was gripped by fear. It was the perfect cover for my true intentions. I used to visit Sophia daily, making sure to take care of her. She was a prisoner, yes, but I was also her warden, a twisted form of guardianship. I bought her food and water, tried to even engage her in a conversation, although she remained unresponsive. With each passing day, my plan strengthened. I brought a professional makeup artist and told him to paint her face with serious wounds and blood. He was a professional. He could fool me too. Those punches and cuts looked real on her face. That's all I need to take revenge on Eljif without reaching his level. You can't fix one mistake with another. I took pictures of Sophia, tied up and gagged, proof of her capture. Then, using the phone number I got from Carlos, I sent the photos directly to Eljif. The message was clear. I had his daughter. I was in control. The images I sent were a catalyst for chaos. Eljif, the once invincible kingpin, was now a broken man. The pictures of his daughter, bound and helpless, shattered his world. His grief was a spectacle, a public display of a man brought to his knees. His empire, built on fear and violence, began to crumble. Loyalties were tested, and trust evaporated. Gang members, sensing weakness, started to distance themselves, their eyes fixed on the prize, the $1 million reward. The once formidable organization was now a house of cards, ready to collapse. The president's condition deteriorated so much that I began to feel guilty for what I did. But when I remember what he did to my father, the flames of anger ignited in me. My plan was to kidnap him as well and take revenge on him. But when I see the state he has become, I get reprimanded for what I will do to him and postpone the kidnapping until later. One day the president was found perverted in his room. The news was normal for everyone, as his psychological state was paving the way for him one option, which is to end his life by himself. I was wondering how I took revenge on the biggest drug dealer in the country, without even touching him. This is justice. If it does not come from the law, it will come from life on its own. The days began to pass day after day until President Eljif was forgotten as if he had never been, sold out his palace and all his properties were seized. I released Sophia, the ghost of the girl I had kidnapped. She was a shadow of her former self, her spirit broken. I watched as she disappeared into the crowd, a solitary figure in a world that had moved on. I had won, but at what cost? My hands were stained with the blood of this twisted game. The man I had been before this ordeal was gone, replaced by a creature of darkness. I was a survivor, a victor, but also a victim of the circumstances that had shaped me. The road ahead was uncertain, filled with shadows and questions. I was a ghost in my own life, a man without a home, a man without a future. Yet, as I walked away from the crumbling remains of Eljif's empire, I carried a flicker of hope, a belief that perhaps, just perhaps, redemption was possible. The story doesn't end here. I was not satisfied with spending money from the one who took the dearest person in my life in luxury and enjoying the time, so I decided to make a bright future with him. As my father wanted me, he wished me a bright future. My family and I moved to America, asking to live a new life full of safety and comfort for me, my mother and my brother. America. The word itself was once a distant, shimmering mirage, a symbol of opportunity and escape. Now, it was the solid ground beneath my feet. The transition was jarring, a brutal uprooting of everything I'd known. The stench of factories replaced by the crisp scent of pine, the cacophony of the city drowned out by the gentle rustle of leaves. My first winter was a shock to the system. The biting cold seeped into my bones, a stark contrast to the relentless Cuban heat. But with it came a different kind of cold, a chilling emptiness where the warmth of family and home once resided. My mother, ever resilient, found solace in a small bakery, her hands kneading dough with the same practiced rhythm she'd used to make our meager meals back home. Her laughter, once a rare commodity, filled our apartment, a beacon of hope in the unfamiliar landscape. I immersed myself in law school, the rigorous curriculum a welcome distraction from the haunting memories. The world of statutes and precedents was a stark departure from the lawless existence I'd left behind. Yet there were echoes of my past in every case, in the stories of injustice and the pursuit of a fair outcome. My ascent through the legal world was rapid, propelled by a relentless determination to prove myself. The city that had once felt like a cold, indifferent giant gradually began to reveal its heart. I found solace in the rhythm of its life, the diversity of its people, the endless possibilities it offered. But the ghost of my past refused to be silenced. The memory of my father, a constant companion in the shadows, was a bittersweet reminder of the life I'd left behind. His absence was a gaping wound, a constant ache. There were nights when the city's relentless energy turned into a deafening silence, and I would find myself alone with my grief. Then I met Anya, a woman as vibrant and resilient as the city itself. She was a ray of sunshine on a cloudy day, her laughter a melody that chased away the shadows of my past. With her by my side, I began to rebuild my life, brick by brick. We married in a small ceremony, surrounded by a handful of friends. It was a day filled with hope and promise, a stark contrast to the darkness that had once consumed me. Our son, Alejandro Jr., was born on a crisp autumn morning. As I held him in my arms, a wave of love washed over me, a love so profound it seemed to transcend time and space. In that moment, I found a sense of peace, a realization that while I couldn't change the past, I could create a future filled with love, hope, and the promise of endless possibilities. The scar of my past would always be a part of me, a constant reminder of the strength I had discovered within. But it was no longer a defining force. It was a chapter in my story, a testament to my resilience. And as I watched my son grow, I knew that my greatest legacy would be the life I was building for him, a life filled with love, opportunity, and the freedom to dream without limits.